morning. Good morning, everybody. Got a few minutes. Good morning. All right, I'm gonna try yet another way of broadcasting here today. I'm gonna see which one works the best. Here, test another one. Maybe the delay won't be quite as long and throw me off. So bear with us this morning again. Good morning. I hope everybody had a nice evening. Thank you this morning, Thank you, Miss Kathy. I had to hide a lot of tiredness, but we're good. I had to go home and work on this presentation while we were here late last night because I had to finish a few things up. We had to get that big shipment of batting out on the floor so that everybody could get their quilts. We could get batting in the quilts and things that were being held. So we came back after dinner and worked for a few hours. I needed to finish up the step outs for AccuQuilters this morning, and I needed to finish the presentation that I have for you today. So then I went home and I started a training that I have to do for Bernina, the wee hours of the morning. We want to talk about if you're not tired, let's just put on an online training and you'll be asleep in 5 minutes. Trust me. Let's just hope maybe some of that sunk in via osmosis as it played while I had my eyes shut. But that's okay. I'll watch it again today. Hopefully I can stay awake this time. All right. Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to spend a little bit of the morning. Let me turn the dehumidifier. Nope, sorry. Turn that dehumidifier off. We're going to learn about English paper piecing, or what is better known as EPP, which is what you'll probably hear me refer to it as here. And we're going to go over the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how this morning on English paper piecing. Yes, Miss Tracy, coffee, lots of coffee. Unfortunately, I don't drink coffee. I'm a really bad Dr. Pepper drinker. So I will hold off on my water until I can get till this afternoon, and then I will get my 1 cup of caffeine, Dr. Pepper, this afternoon. I didn't say it would be a little cup, but you see me with a McDonald's cup, that's usually what's in it. McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, wherever I can get it. So, all right.
Lizanne, no, it's not here. No telephone.
Yes, exciting stuff this morning. All sorts of stuff. Yeah. All right. Let's learn about English paper piecing this morning here. We're going to see if everything cooperates. So what is it? So all of the images that you're going to see on the slides here this morning are all English paper pieced projects and things along that line. So just they're all images that were found on Pinterest and Instagram and Google and all of that. So I don't know what fabric it is. I don't know what pattern most of them are. I can't help you there, but we can certainly recreate it in some way or another. So English paper piecing, typically called EPP, is a method of using, taking fabric, wrapping it around a heavy paper shape, and then you sew the pieces together by hand. okay, to create very intricately pieced designs. Typically designs that you probably would not attempt by sewing machine, okay? These would be traditionally done hand pieced. It is excellent accuracy, precision piecing, okay? It is not the same as what you hear as foundation piecing. Foundation piecing is generally done by sewing machine. We also refer to it as paper piecing. We use a paper muslin sort of foundation to sew to. With EPP, that paper that we're wrapping the shape around to help hold the shape actually will be removed from this project. We don't actually sew to the paper. So that's just a couple of differences. So yeah, you lost you at hand. I know that's a 4-letter word for many of us, but in the last few years, I actually kind of enjoy it. Now, I didn't say that I have a lot. I probably have about 3 things that I've ever English paper pieced, 2 of which I can't locate this morning. No surprise there, right? They were, that was the other thing I did last night, tore my house apart looking for one of those 2 things. I knew the other one was here at the store, and I'm not even gonna go try to find it right now. So I don't have many, but I do, because I'm typically here. I don't do a lot of traveling in that aspect, but it is kind of relaxing to do. So who created it? Where did English paper piecing come from? Okay. It is originated in England, called mosaic or honeycomb patchwork. In the 1700s, it kind of became popular in the United States, and that's where we added and coined the phrase English paper piecing. Your most common and popular shape in EPP is going to be the hexagon. And the most recognizable project from it is going to be Grandmother's Flower Gardens, okay? Which really became super popular in the 20s and 30s. So it's not something new. It's been around a long time. It's just really in the last few years has come back into popularity, okay? We've taken it in that older skilled technique. We typically see it in, scrap fabrics, 1930s, 1920s, and we brought them into our modern quilters have taken it and really used brighter fabrics, and we use a lot of fussy cutting and things like that to really add interest to the actual project. Why do you want to do this? So I can tell you that the item on the right-hand side of this slide is Tula Pink. Okay, that is Tula Pink's fabrics. And I believe that's the beginning of the Tula Pink Nova English paper piecing project, I believe. But you can see with that, the fussy cutting that's taking place around the center star with the cat food cans and things along that line. So lots of options. So English paper piecing offers us a way to easily put shapes together precisely. You don't need a sewing machine. It's portable. Okay, now granted, we just do bits and pieces at a time, not giant quilts like what you see on the slide. You would be doing sections of this and then putting it together. Air travel, road travel, TV time, things where you just need to sit and keep your hands busy. It's the perfect, to me, it doesn't require a lot of brain power. So it's a great way to wind down your day. We do spend a lot of time fussy cutting in, like I said, today's modern English paper piecing projects that give you the ability to create a lot of secondary patterns and some interest. And it's great for scraps, because if you're just using small hexagons or smaller shapes, you don't need a lot of yardage of particular colors. So the portability of it is the best. So let's talk about how you do it. Now, I am not an expert, okay? Let's just say I took one quick class at a quilt market, just so I had an idea. I've done a couple of things, but for the most part, I've read some books and watched some tutorials and things along that line. So there's a lot of ways to do this. So I'm just going to cover, there's a couple of different stitches. There's a couple of different ways to get your shape around the cardboard and that type of thing. So like I said, don't take me as the all-knowing, and this is the way it has to be done, because there are lots and lots of ways to do this. And I'm sure that even you guys who are maybe already English paper piece even have other ways of doing it. So first you have to choose your fabrics, and depending upon what you're doing, you need to think about, what type of look you're looking for, strong contrast, you're gonna need lights, medium, and darks, where to place all of these different shapes and different colors. Are you using solids? Are you using high contrast prints? Are you using tone on tone? That type of thing. Are you going to fussy cut? Okay, or are you just going to be whatever the shape gets cut, that's where it's going to get used. And then don't be afraid to try some of those more challenging pieces that you have a tendency to stay away from when we would rotary cut and piece by machine, like stripes and strong angular patterns. A lot of us shy away from those when we are machine piecing, but you may find it a little bit easier when you're going to hand piece or English paper piece those particular items. In English paper piecing, a lot of time we use acrylic templates. And you get an acrylic template that matches the size of the shape that you're going to do, and you use that to kind of audition where it's at. You can trace around it and then cut. You can rotary cut around it, that type of thing. You can use a double mirror. So a double mirror is two mirrors taped together. And if you've been in the industry and been quilting a while, you probably have seen one, because we used it. We use it to audition for like stack and wax, and what things will look like if they're mitered, and so on and so forth, without having to actually cut and make one. So we can drag that double mirror across fabric, and kind of you see what things would look like if you fussy cut something in one particular area, to know whether it's going to look right, and that type of thing. Once you have your fabrics, you're going to cut your fabrics. Your acrylic template and your rulers are going to be fast. AccuQuilt dies are going to be the easiest for cutting your fabrics. Now, they're not going to really allow you, the AccuQuilt die isn't really going to allow you to fussy cut, okay? Because you can't obviously see through the die. But you can, with the AccuQuilt dies, you can stack up a few strips, cut 6 layers at a time. The same with rotary cutting. I probably wouldn't do 6 layers, but you could do three layers with a rotary cutter and an acrylic template. And you just have to be careful. Typically, I work with a smaller rotary cutter when I'm using the acrylic templates, because we're talking like a 1-inch hexagon. So this giant hexagon with this, this little hexagon with a giant 45mm rotary cutter could be a little scary. You don't want to get your fingers in the way. So I typically, if I'm going to rotary cut, I would use like a 28mm rotary cutter. And then you're looking at, with that, I think about up to 3 layers of fabric you can really accurately cut with that. So you'd work through and cut out your shapes, whether you are rotary cutting or AccuQuilt. We do have a new AccuQuilt cube that just released this month for cutting the most popular shapes and sizes in English paper piecing. And it's a 1-inch hexagon is really where a lot of projects revolve around 1 inch. What's unique about this cube is that it allows you to not only cut the fabric, but there is a die that will also cut the paper. Okay. So you don't have, you can cut your own papers. You don't have to go out and buy papers that have been cut. There are 4 shapes. So you get the hexagon, you get a half hexagon, you get the triangle, the 60-degree triangle, and the diamond that all coordinate and would work together. Okay, so you get not only the fabric die, but you also get the paper die. And I have a couple hexagons cut here this morning that I'll show you. So that kind of allows you to build, there's lots of options in fractured hexagons that you can make with these. And it will save some money in the overall scheme of things if you are constantly buying paper for making hexagons, okay? If hexagons are your only shape and that's really all that you want to do, we also have two options of hexagon English paper piecing dies on their own. So on the left here, you have the 1/2 inch hexagon. That means that each edge is a 1/2 inch. So the top portion of that die cuts the paper and the lower half portion of the die cuts the fabric. And then you have a 1 inch hexagon on the other side. So you have the 1/2 and the 1. So if only thing you want to do is hexagons and you're not into diamonds and things yet, maybe this is where you want to start with your hexagons. Just to cover how you would fussy cut. So in the image on the left, you can kind of see an acrylic template. With the acrylic template, you can, I would put it in place, mark around it, and typically a lot of times I use a wax marker, also known as a China marker, that you would then draw, like, for example, that's an owl. So maybe I would, on top of my acrylic template, mark the placement of like what is the eyeballs of the owl that are built into the wings, so that I can make sure that when I move that paper, that acrylic template to the next butterfly image, I can make sure that they are lined up exactly where it was when I cut the previous one, so that you get the real repeating kaleidoscope out of it. So that is marking your template will be helpful in that. So there's just a couple of ways to put in registration marks and that type of thing when you're fussy cutting. It does take a little longer to fussy cut your shapes, but oh my goodness, the end result with fussy cutting is amazing. So once you have your shapes cut and your papers cut, we need to get the shape, the fabric basted to the paper. And we're going to do that. There's two ways to do it, two schools of thought for the most part. You have glue basting, which is what I'm going to talk about first, and then you have thread basting. So in glue basting, it's quick, easy. I'm a glue baster. It's just to me, it's a little faster than having to sew everything. I use a little bit of a glue stick. This is a washable glue stick from Sewline. I carry them here from Bowen. That is in a little pin format, so it's got a small tip on it. I typically put a little bit of glue on the back of the paper right in the center and then stick it to my fabric so that it doesn't move on me. And then I would basically, not at the edge of the paper, but a little bit in from the edge of the paper, I'm going to draw a small line, okay, and of glue. And then I'm going to fold that piece of fabric or the seam allowance over and let it kind of press it so that it holds on to the glue. And then I'm going to work my way all the way around all the sides of the hexagons or the shapes, and we're going to then attach them to the paper, okay? We want to make sure that we're not at the edge, the glue isn't at the edge of the paper, because we don't want to be sewing through the glue, and we also want to make sure that we can easily get this paper out, okay? So we don't want a lot of glue, just a little bit. I use a lot of mini Wonder Clips, okay, which I'll show you. I'll turn the camera on here in a minute. And I use those to kind of hold the corners over while the glue kind of sets, okay. Miss Kathy, I will get one of my markers and I'll show you, I'll bring it over here and I'll show you what it looks like. The ones on my desk, the China markers, the wax marker that we peel off the top, I usually sign the thing with. Daddy, up on my pegboard, it's in one of the cup holders up top there. I have a black, a green, a red one. There may even be a white one in there. Okay, sorry, forgot to grab those this morning. So that's glue basting. So it's something very quick, very easy, can be done. You could do this in a car. Little lap board on your desk, on your lap. And you know, you don't even have to think or really look at it, because you can fold this over and you can feel the edge and kind of go with that there. Now, thread basting is basically doing the same concept of folding over the fabric, but instead of gluing, we are going to take a strand of thread, we're going to tie a knot, and we're going to come up through one of the intersections where the fabrics fold over each other, and then we'll move to another corner and we'll take a stitch. Thank you. And pick up the next corner where the fabrics fold over, and then repeat all the way around this particular shape, and then knot off at the end. Okay. You want to make sure that in doing this, I would still put a dab of glue on the template to hold it in place. Okay. While you're doing this around. I have a hard time with this, and it probably just takes practice at getting it tight enough around the template. So when I'm stitching and moving, I have a tendency to not get it quite as tight, but you can see the use of the Wonder Clips to hold things in place that are there. So I think it just takes a little bit more practice in getting this, but many people thread based their particular templates. It's completely up to you. Okay. Now, with assembly, we basically, once you get your pieces wrapped around their paper and stabilized, you are going to sew them together. Right sides together. We're going to sew along the edge with a fine line and a fine needle. A fine thread and a fine needle. So that thread, I use 80 weight cotton from Arfil. You could use, some people use 60 weight, but since the 80 weight came out, I really prefer 80 weight. There is a line of thread called Invisifil from Wonderfil. It's 100 weight polyester. It's nice, I like it, but I have a hard time feeling it. It is so fine that I can't get a hold of it. And so sometimes I struggle with the 100 weight. I love it, but it's so fine. Like I said, it's just so fine. It's fabulous, but I struggle at keeping it in the needle because I don't feel it in my fingers. You're using single strand. We're going to tie a knot in the end. Okay, quilter's knot or a large knot. Remember, it's fine thread, so it takes a couple of extra wraps to get a knot. And then we're going to be taking a stitch. There are two types of stitches that we use, and whip stitch is one of them. And basically, you're going to come through the seam or right at the edge of your hexagon, not through the paper, but right through the folds of the fabric. Out one side and then come back over and then keep doing it and just whip around the edge all the way to the end. Okay. About 15 to 20 stitches an inch, so small. Okay, very close together in that aspect. And then when you get to the end, you don't need to tie a knot because you can add the next piece and continue on around. Unless you are finished or anything like that. But if you still have enough thread, you could open this shape up and then add the next piece right sides together and continue on around your hexagon or whatever particular unit you are sewing. I have a couple questions. Yes, I do have, yes, Miss Kathy, I wish they would come up with a slightly smaller glue stick. I'm hoping that they will, because I mean the ones today, they're a little bit smaller, but they are still a little bit on the big end. It would be nice to have like a fine tip pin that was glue. We do carry 80 weight R-fill. I only have a few colors at the moment. A couple of neutrals. We have some dark, some red, green, and I have some tans and things that are on order. So I do carry a lot. And typically, when I'm doing English paper piecing, if I just use a neutral thread, I don't change my thread color to match. But if your stitches aren't quite as invisible, then you may want to use thread that matches the color fabric that you are using. Some people do use beeswax. I don't. I don't typically cut my thread long enough. And with the 80 and the 100 weight, I just find it so fine anyway that it really doesn't pick up any beeswax. But it's completely up to you, but you could try beeswax. Now, the whip stitch works for any sort of shape, any sort of joining. However, the flat back stitch is going to work best with shapes that are curved, okay? They're just, especially ones that set into each other. So basically with a flat back stitch is you leave your projects laying flat, and you're just going to stitch like a whip stitch back and forth through those particular seams, folded edges, but while keeping both shapes flat. For me, this stitch I have to do on some sort of work surface. I can't do this in my hand. So I have a lap desk that I would lay them flat on and do this particular quilt. Definitely, this is a lot of the stitch that they use in the La Pasquale quilt, which is all English paper pieced kind of medallions. A lot of intricate curved piecing in that particular quilt project that's there. Now, when you're finished with your project, it's time to remove the paper, okay? Now, there's lots of ways to remove paper. The way that I find that works best for me is I'm gonna spray my project with Best Press, okay? And iron it until it's dry using steam, okay? That's gonna force the hexagons to stay in shape while you remove the paper, because literally what we're gonna do to remove the paper is we're going to fold up the edge and we're going to pull the paper out. So by steaming it really well, you're really setting in those creases and those seams so that you can unfold, remove the paper, and then put it back. The steam also helps if you're using glue to release the glue, okay, so that you can carefully pull the edges up and then fold the edge back down. Once your piece is finished, whether it's a quilt, it's something that you're gonna applique, you can hand or machine applique it to a background. You can finish off the edges, and if you're doing a grandmother's flower garden, are you gonna fill in the edges to square it off with the half hexagon shapes? Are you just gonna cut them off so you've got half flowers, that type of thing? And then you could quilt it. If it's a smaller piece, a lot of us do hexagons, little hexagon flowers to applique and embellish, maybe pillows or little bags and things like that. You would then either machine applique or hand applique that unit to the background fabric, okay? And then it would be ready to, then it would be finished, okay? Now, questions, okay? And while I change over the camera here and show you what things look like, please feel free to ask questions here, and let me get the camera. Okay, so this here is English paper piece. It's not finished. I will tell you, it was the first thing I ever did when I learned English paper piecing. We won't look at it's not very pretty on the back, but so the things you have to learn in 90 minutes is all we typically get. So you can, let me see, let me zoom in here. And let's see. Okay. So this is, I'll show you the back. See, it's a hot mess. So this was all thread-based, glue-basted, basically around, and then these corner pieces, and there wasn't really a particular seam allowance. These were all hand cut for that particular project. But we then started with, you know, adding in units and joining them together. If you look, it's hard to see here, but if you come in, there are some stitches that you can see in certain places where I probably took too big of a stitch or too far apart. And then you can kind of see it, which is fine. It's okay. I am planning to maybe one day put this down to a piece of wool felt, and then I will just either hand applique or machine applique this down to a piece of wool felt for like a little candle mat type thing that's on there. Okay. Now, let's get that out. So the question was the marker. This is a China marker, okay? It is, it wipes off. So basically you can then take a paper towel and wipe it off. It's wax, basically. To get more, we basically peel the paper out. Let me stop saying the word basically. We peel the paper off. So if you have your template and you want to mark, you know, placement of one particular area of what you're going to fussy cut, you could use this to mark lines or locations so that you can get them aligned in the same place every time you fussy cut. Okay, they come in a variety of colors and things like that, but that is what we call a China marker. Okay, so this is the 1-inch hexagon. Okay, this paper was cut with the AccuQuilt cube this morning. So the AccuQuilt cube they punch a hole in the middle of the paper so that you can help you get it out. So I put a little bit of glue stick on the back of this so that I can get it positioned where I want it, so it will hold onto it while I am prepping it. Now, there are a couple of things that also work. Okay. There's a school of thought too that you don't need to thread or glue based. Now I always still glue, and that is using a fabric folding solution. Okay. And so there's one from Clover, and then we have one from Acorn Pressing Solutions as well. So basically what you do, stop saying that word. It has a fine pin on it, a fine tip to it, and you would kind of run down right next to, not on the paper, but next to the paper, so that it leaves a line of solution. Oh, I didn't put glue stick on the back of this like I said I did. And then you just fold over, okay? And then if you go and press these, they will stay folded over the template and not need to be glued or thread basted at all. If this is something you're gonna do right away and use right away, I would totally do it this way. But if I'm gonna just sit and make hexies and create a little hexie box, then I would be glue basting. Okay, I just don't think this, to me, it doesn't stay as long as I would want it to stay, but it's great at getting really great folds along the edge, because you want a nice fold. All right, so glue basting, we're gonna come using the edge of the glue pen, we're gonna come down about 1/8 of an inch, and we're going to mark some glue. We're going to fold over the fabric so that the fabric just hits the edge of the glue. you can use the mini Wonder Clips. And you work your way around. Okay, until that shape is wrapped. Okay, so the paper will come out easily, as long as you don't sew it. That's there. So when you take it out, we basically unfold the edges and pop it out. Okay, it's pliable, and you've sewn it all together, so things aren't going to take on a different shape as you're working to get the paper out. There is a product from Australia and from Miss Helen Subings. We're having a harder time right now getting it in the United States. It is a fusible applique paper, okay? And it fuses on, and it doesn't have to be removed, okay? So it fuses on, and we wrap around. It's still stiff enough that you can feel the edge. You wrap around the edge, and then you use them just like you would the cardboard, except these don't need to be removed. We used to carry them here in the store in lots of shapes and sizes until they stopped coming in from Australia. So hopefully, I know that I think they were changing manufacturers or something along that lines that I had read, and we haven't had a quilt market for me to see Helen and ask her about it. But it takes some time to remove, but they're really not difficult. Paper, I just use cardstock, standard cardstock. Nothing, you don't want anything too thick, but copy paper is not thick enough, okay? So this is standard cardstock. Pick it up in packs at Michael's, AC Moore, Staples, anywhere. Typically we use white. That way if this cardstock color, if you iron it, spray baste it, you don't want the color to run. I've never had paper run in color, but it would be my luck. I just used blue today so that you guys could see it on the white table, but I would be using white or natural. These shapes, these are all my shapes from this project. So the white or natural color is plenty. And it's not, it's not a thick piece of cardstock. Okay. All right. So once you have your pieces adhered to the paper, it would be time to sew them together. So we're going to put right sides together and we're going to match the edges. I have my thread. Okay. I have a single strand of thread with a knot tied in the end. Okay. We're going to take a stitch right in the corner. Okay. Through the folds of the paper. Okay. And then I'm just going to come right back to the other side, and I'm just going to keep stitching. See, already unthreaded my needle. And I'm going to work my way all the way across this hexagon. Okay. Oh, that's a good idea, Miss Sharon. The annoying mat cards that drop out of the inside of magazines. That works. That's a good idea. We used to use telephone books for foundation piecing, so okay. You can reuse the papers until they're really no longer holding the shape, to be honest. If it's going to depend upon the steaming and things like that, how you use it to get out, if you've sewn into it, that type of thing. So I would always compare I would always compare a used one to one that you just freshly cut to make sure that it wasn't skewing. It wasn't, you know, slightly smaller, too big, too small. Doing this on camera is not easy. Okay. So we're going to pretend like that's sewn together all the way. It's not yet. Okay. But when I got to this point, I could then take this unit and I could put it right sides together and I could sew this way. And then once that's there, I would just fold this over and then attach it to that side. Or if you're doing typically hexagons, you can sew all the way around and then come put the center in. It's completely up to you as to how you do it. When you get to the end, you thread here. When you get to the end, you just tie a knot like you would just a sewer's knot. So take a loop and then sew through the loop. And then I usually do that a couple of times. Okay, and just to secure it. And then, can't see it. Comes with practice. But then that is how you English paper piece. Do I have, let's see. I know there's some questions. Copy paper, it does work. I think with copy paper, as you get, for a first project, I would start with cardstock. You can feel it's a little bit more tactile, and then you could shift to copy paper. It's a little more, copy paper allows you, it's a little more flexible, so you can precision piece and you can kind of squeeze things in, stretch things out, that type of stuff as you need, just like with the fusible hexes. They're a little more forgiving because you can kind of squeeze things. Correct. Stitches do not go through the paper. You're only stitching through the fold of the fabric that is wrapped around the paper. Okay. Yes, this bag that I have here, let me get this bag up. This is a this line of fabric is older. This is Amanda Murphy. It's called My Sewing Room, I think is what it was.
Happy place.
No, this is My Sewing Room.
It looks very similar.
Yes. This is the Thread Caddy bag by Annie. Okay, it's designed to, there in the zipper, there is a piece of ultra suede. Yes. That you basically, the bag is designed for people that do handwork. Basically, you take your thread tail out through the piece of ultra suede, and in that way you can thread your needle and just keep pulling the thread and not have to chase the spool around and that type of thing. So they just kind of hang out, the tails just kind of hang out in there. So this is the Thread Caddy by Annie. I'm pretty sure I don't have the pattern hanging over there right now. It's a little older. We taught, I don't know, they taught this class, what was it, 2-3 years ago, ladies? 2.5, because this was part of the Let's Get Organized with the By Annie Let's Get Organized club that I did, I think 2 years ago. All right. That's right. That's right. Too much fun. Too much fun. I know. I'm giving you one more hobby, but I'm also giving you a way to use scraps. Because, you know, it's a little piece of fabric. You know, if we have a hard time throwing things away, this is little. Let you use every bit of piece of fabric that you have bought. I did. Oh, thank you. That fell out of the bag. Yeah, and the R-Fill 80 weight is on a wooden spool. Okay, if you're wondering what color it is, because you know, 28 is gray, 40 is green, 50 is orange, 12 is red, wool is burgundy, floss and 80 weight are on wooden spools. There are lots of patterns. I think paperpieces.com is probably that's all they do is specialty English paper piecing, acrylic templates, fussy cutting templates, things like that. They're probably the best ones that do it. It's yes, it is. Yes, Kelly picked it up during quarantine. I cut her hexagons for her and got her started. And she's just been making hexagons. It is the perfect thing to do when your machine is in for service. But yes, but Kelly now owns her own AccuQuilt and cuts her own hexagons. So don't ask me to cut your hexagons. I will sell you all the tools you need to do them. All right. I think that is everything for you today. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of information on English paper piecing, and maybe we'll give it a try, a little experiment with it. And I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend and the great rest of your day. I will see some of you here in about 45 minutes at the AccuQuilter session on Snail's Trail. So I am going to let everybody go, finish your cup of coffee. I think I'm going to go have another piece of pie because, you know, why not? I told Mom, I was like, oh, I think I'm just going to have some pie for breakfast. She says, well, it's no different than having a waffle with fruit or a Pop-Tart. I said, well, that's a good way to justify it. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed, and we'll have a great weekend. I will see you here next Saturday to talk about freestanding lace. Bye, everybody.